But I do want to end with one more, okay? I told a different example. I told the thing about Korah this morning, but I want to talk about Saul, just very quickly. You know, Saul was the first king of the United Kingdom. And he was chosen by God to be the king, and Saul would obey orders. And what God really wanted was his leaders would obey orders, do whatever it said. So God told Saul to kill all the Amalekites and kill all of their men, women, and children and all the cattle. Go in and kill them all. Total genocide, right? And so Saul went, all right, I can do that. So he went in and he killed them all. He killed all the men, all the women, all the children, all the pregnant women, and he killed all the animals except he kept a few choice animals alive. You know, a few choice animals he kept alive. And so then Samson, God's talking through Samson, Samuel. Samuel is saying, did you obey God, Saul? Saul said, yes, I did. I obeyed God. Well, I hear some animals bleeding over here. And Saul said, oh, well, I was saving these choice animals as a sacrifice to God. Because God wants animal sacrifice. And I thought this would be, I could show God how much I love him, how much I worship him by sacrificing. You know, I could kill them there or I could kill them later. It's a sacrifice. And Samuel said, obedience is better than sacrifice. You are no longer fit to be the king of this nation. That's what it took to get a king deposed. And God said, I'm going to replace you with a man after God's own heart. You know who that was? David, yeah. That's why the Jews have a Star of David today, not a Star of Saul. Saul should have been the king, should have been, right? And so Saul was dejected. What did I do? That wasn't so bad, was it? But he was deposed. He was no longer king. And this new king, David, who was a man after God's own heart. When you hear that phrase, what do you think? A man after God's own heart. Well, you kind of think, oh, he plays the harp and he sings these psalms and he's a sweet, you know what I mean? You think of David. The reason he was called a man after God's own heart is because he would obey to the letter. And you know, the women were singing after Saul was deposed and David became king. The women were singing. And Saul heard this. Saul has killed his thousands, but David has killed his 10,000s. And there was a song they were singing. And Saul was not, and they were cheerful about it. They were marching on the street, yay, yay, they were singing the song. And Saul was, you know. And so David, who would completely follow orders, mercilessly, a complete genocide, was made the king of the Jews. So think about that. Next time you read a psalm written by this King David, this monster who would obey orders no matter what. If God gave that order to me, or to you, what would you say to him?
No way.
I would say, you created hell, you go to hell. I mean, send me to hell. Fine, I don't want to be an immoral creature. Anyway, that's just a part of the book, and then I wrote an article that is running in Free Thoughts Today, the 10 worst. I picked my 10 worst out of all of those 1,500 plus. There's more than 2,000 passages because some of them do double duty. One verse can fit more than one of those categories. And I was just about done I actually had sent the manuscript out, and then I realized and I learned, I was using the NRSV Bible, the New Revised Standard Version, which I think is probably the one that most scholars are using. I learned that the NRSV has a 500 verse limit for fair use. If you use more than that, then they get to own the book. You know what I mean? It's that kind of a thing. So I had to go and replace with RSV and NIV. They both have 500 verse limits, and so I had to go in and totally change a whole bunch of them to different versions. And the King James Version is public domain, but I learned something fascinating. The King James is free. You can quote the King James Bible anywhere, except in England. In England, you need permission from the Queen's printer to print because the King James was a product of the monarchy, right? So if you're going to keep that in mind next time you're going to publish your book. And I guess it's a formality or something, but anyway, the monarchy in England owns the King James Version of the Bible, except that we can use it here in the U.S. So I'm just gonna stop, and maybe you want to do questions next, or do you want to? I could end with a song later, maybe, or something. There's a question up
I was
there.
going to say for your song there that you were inventing, go look up Tom Layer's chemical, the chemical table song. And
Oh, maybe so. Okay, that might work. Well, Richard was suggesting like a Gilbert and Sullivan kind of thing.
It kind of sounds right.
But you know, I'm stuck with those exact words. I can't change. It's got to fit the way. What I did was I watched him on YouTube reading that sentence, and he said, "The God of the Old Testament is arguably the most unpleasant character in all fiction." And I listened to the exact tone of his voice. The God of the Old Testament is arguably the most unpleasant character in all fiction. So he basically wrote the song. The tone of his voice wrote the song. But I need to find like a verse or an intro. I need to find something to make it like a proper tune. And then, would you want to be in the backup choir? Would you guys like to sing? Pirates of Penzance, yeah, yeah, modern major general, yeah, that kind of stuff.